Hello and welcome to the Future of Web3 podcast. Welcome back, where every week we discuss everything to do with Web3 and more importantly, how you can implement Web3 technology into your business today. My name is Eric and I'm here with my co-host and business partner, Aleck. Welcome to the cast.
So if you're listening to this, you're probably a CIO, a CTO, might be a business owner. You're somebody who's trying to understand how you can take Web3 technology and bring it into your business, or you might even be thinking, well, how do I just prepare for it? So today we're going to talk a little bit about just current news that's happening in Web3 and some interesting happenings, I think, or some drama that's perhaps you could put it that way. But really what the overall focus of this podcast is to help communicate the overall industry and really what the technology is in a relevant term to your business.
So we got an exciting one this week. In the news, there was two big lawsuits that brought upon two big crypto exchanges that we're going to dive a little bit deeper into. One being Binance and the second one being CoinSquare, and the SEC actually suing them both in 2 consecutive days. This is pretty out there, Aleck.
Yeah, well, as Coinbase was the one getting sued. There's too many coin exchanges out there, all simple, easy enough mistake to make. But no, it's interesting because really, I think what it comes down to with these exchanges is they're operating as broker dealers, but they're not registered as broker dealers, and it's pretty clear cut in either Canadian or U.S. securities law is if you are selling what amounts to a security, and the way they basically define security is it's basically a store of value or like an asset that can generate revenue, so something like a dividend or a payment or some kind of income. So if you're dealing in anything like that, you need to register as a securities dealer, and I think Coinbase and Binance just had no intention of doing that, or I think they weren't fully registered, because the other complexity with this is, of course, it's a government, regulated regulator, so they don't make it easy. And so I have different types of different types of classification that you have to register under. So I think they did have some of the registrations. Like I know in Canada, for example, there's a lot of services that are fully, broker dealers. There's even some that are portfolio managers, things like that. So what you would see in like banks and big financial institutions. These crypto companies were going and getting the same certification, but not necessarily the right ones. And there's always a reason for that. That sector and the regulated security space is it's an interesting beast. There's a lot of people who operate in the gray market, and for pretty specific reasons. So I think the crypto guys tried to do it. They got called out and likely because they were making so much money. Got called out, and now the regulators are coming in after them. So we're seeing this in the U.S. side with the SEC. I'm sure we'll see it in the Canadian side as well, because Binance obviously had quite the Canadian operation, and Coinbase is selling. I have a Coinbase account. I'm using it. So I'm sure we'll see it in Canada too. What do you think, Eric?
Well, I'm more interested in some of the early responses, and these are off the record. These are just what you can find online in the news. Like we haven't been talking to anyone at Binance or Coinbase, but what I find some of the early responses from Binance is Binance did create something, Binance US, to conform with the regulations that are out there to be a registered securities dealer, or partially the way there. But some of their high net worth clients decided to use some of their other services and not register properly. And so far, the early defense is it's not their fault that some of their clients didn't actually register properly. Well, that's not really an active defense, and I think, because you're still the exchange that allowed them to do those transactions.
It'd be convenient if that's how it worked, though. That'd be nice if you could just plead ignorance. Oh, that'd be nice.
Yeah, that'd be not my fault. I didn't know what they were doing, but I still took my little piece off of it. Oh man! But the other side that I saw from Coinbase and everything, and Coinbase is apparently operating as normal, is that the crypto market is such a gray area as far as regulations are concerned right now. So because there's not a clear set of regulations and a clear set of legislation, they're just going to continue operating business as usual right now as they're being sued because there are no clear regulation. That's another wildly interesting approach.
I bet you that's a very much a depends who you talk to situation.
Yep.
Oh yeah. But I can appreciate it from a lot of respects, because when you look at it, say, take a tax perspective, which kind of falls in line with this, but different perspective. But from a tax perspective, they're pretty, they kind of want their cake and eat it too. They don't really spell out how you define profits and earnings in crypto, because they kind of, like, when you're doing your filings, for example, they ask, go through, look at all your transactions, report all the gains that you have. But there's a lot of things in the crypto space, like if you looked at from just purely from cryptocurrency, there's a lot of functionality and a lot of like staking, which we'll get to in a bit.
Yep.
That is, it's not, I guess you're kind of making an income on it, but it's kind of like a repayment of capital, and it's kind of, so it's not really clear cut. And securities laws aren't really built for that. Securities laws are built for equity in a company or debt or structured debt of some kind. That's what it's built for. And crypto has elements of that, but it isn't a pure play in that. So it's it doesn't really come over one for one, but the government's happy to step in and say, no, you still have to pay us for we still get our money on your capital gains, and we still get money on your income. So it is a, have your cake and eat it too type situation.
Well, exactly, yeah. And that was one of Coinbase's big problems right now that they're getting into, is their staking, their savings staking account, because it's not really a savings account, because you're keeping your crypto there, but while it's there, it's earning staked coin and everything. But that in essence is security, or that's what the SEC sees as a security. And it's going to be very interesting to see how Coinbase defends itself and saying how it's not a security, because exactly like you said, like, this is uncharted territory where you are, like, I won't use Coinbase as an example. I'll just use any random coin as an example. Like, just like take coin A. If you buy a coin and you give it back to the A coin DAO, we're going to pay you out in rewards, the reward coin B. So it's not really interest, because you're not getting the same coin back. You're getting a new product. Like, you're getting paid out in a different product. And like, how do you tax that? Like, how do you regulate that? Like, because is it income? Is it a dividend? Is it like, what is that?
What
because
is it?
You're creating this new product. Like, you are staking one thing, and like, if you were to quit it, you're staking dollars, and they're giving you back euros or something like that. But it's not euros. It's something that they made up all by themselves, and it's its own asset. And that's the hard part about it. Like, how do you classify that? Because really the SEC wants to protect deposits, to protect users' investments and their citizens' investments, but B, make sure everyone pays their fair share in taxes. Mm-hmm. And I can't stress this enough. Claim your crypto earnings on your taxes. Just do it. Like, it's such an easy thing to do on your taxes. Like, just claim what you win, because it's not worth the risk. It's not worth the risk to try to hide some earnings. Like, just claim everything that you make.
It makes it simple. It's Well, and I guess when you look at that, it kind of flips over to this other piece around the timing, because as you saw these lawsuits, I think just before the lawsuits started to come out, there was news out of Hong Kong. Maybe Eric, you give a bit of an intro to that.
Yeah, so very interesting. So Hong Kong, which is part of China, announced that they are going to officially regulate and legalize retail crypto investing. So crypto investing is illegal in China. I'm sure there are tons of Chinese investors in crypto, but officially it is not allowed. But now they're going to start allowing it for retail investors in Hong Kong before June 1st, which was the date when they're going to open open the floodgates for retail investors. You have to be a registered dealer for this. So a couple of weeks before, when I first started reading about it, there was already 180 institutions that were getting ready to be registered to be dealers for retail investors there. And so that came into effect on June 1st. Now on June 5th and June 6th, Binance, a Chinese exchange, and Coinbase, which is an American exchange, but it's still a crypto exchange, both get hit with the SEC. Now, I'm not saying that this is a conspiracy, but I'm also saying there are no coincidences. If
That's
you know
right.
What
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's when you look at that, you're because like it's not like a hot war necessarily or like but there is there's a fight over dominance in the global financial markets right now. And like the US dollar has always been, it's the means to settle international trade. And just because
Well, even in the coins, like the coins have their stable coins, and what are those coins? It's BUSD, so Binance's USD pegged coin, or USDC, like those
everything's
two.
pegged to them.
Everything's pegged to the US dollar, even in crypto now. And like when people are kicking out their risky investments into stable coins, that's what they're kicking it out to, which is so wild that there is a crypto version of the American currency. That's how dominant it is.
That wasn't even made by the U.S. central bank. It was just made by people like, what's the most stable thing? Oh, let's use U.S. dollar. Yeah. That's a good idea.
Yeah.
So it's funny because there is a push for that right now. But so everyone's, a lot of the conversations around like the yuan, the Chinese yuan. It's like obviously there's a lot of political reasons, not even globally, it's just within China why they wouldn't want to do that. So then there's the BRICS currency, the BRICS group of countries, and it just so happens all those BRICS countries are all pro crypto in different ways. So like they're looking at it a little bit different. Like the US is like, we have like all the banks and the central bank are looking at, we're doing a trial on his central bank digital currency, and like they're kind of like pussyfooting around it. But the BRICS guys, they are right into it. They're like, they would adopt Bitcoin as their currency tomorrow if it made sense for them. Like they're ready to go. So that's all kind of reflecting. I think that's going to reflect big time as you see what the U.S. is doing in terms of crunching and really kind of putting pressure on the crypto, the technology really. And you have so many other folks that are emerging and they're trying to, take advantage of it. So with all this in mind, so when we're talking about current, and we're getting a little bit out of scope for our podcast, but when you look at this, like what does this really affect? Like, do you see this having, in my opinion, there's no impact on the underlying technology. And for, I think for our listeners, they see this is more noise than anything else. Because really, again, like the business use case and the industry use case really doesn't have a whole lot to do with these exchanges and, securities laws and things like that. So what's your take on that, Eric?
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head right there. And it's important to remember and not get lost in the news and think that crypto or the underlying blockchain technology is anyway affected by these exchanges and the way that they're dealing, because we stressed it even from our first podcast, and we'll stress it again. Like, crypto is very exciting and it's very exciting as a currency, but we are more excited on the underlying technology, and that's what you should be more excited about as well, because that technology is just getting better and better every day. Every version of the smart contracts that they create, every new version of a coin that comes out there that is more secure, more trusting, more transparent, that is what you're actually looking for. And so if there are some exchanges or some bad actors or anything like that, you can kind of push that aside, because we're not an investing podcast, and we're not giving you investment advice or anything like that. If there's any takeaway as a CEO or CTO or anyone like that, it's number one, follow the rules.
Simple as it.
Yeah, follow the rules.
Simple as that.
Yeah. How about yourself? Like,
it's like, it's all noise, because like you have to remember, and I think we're guilty of it as well. Is like when you look at Web3 and blockchain right now, the best marketable and like the actual what you can sink your teeth into is cryptocurrency. That's what it is. It's hard. Like we, even as in our like we spend a lot of time vetting the only cryptocurrencies that are trying to bridge the gap into industry. We spend a lot of time looking at those, trying to find them. But it's kind of hard to get. There's the challenge of everybody wants to be second in this type of thing, where it's everyone's nervous about being the first adopter because, oh, what if it doesn't work? Because I can't put business critical systems over to this. Like, there's, everybody gets skittish, especially as the organization grows in size. And you can't blame them. I mean, like, at the end of the day, you have to be producing whatever you're producing. You have to be providing whatever service. That's the bottom line. The technology you're using in the back end is really less important. It all comes into making sure you can deliver that service or that good or whatever. So you can't really blame them. But what we're trying to focus on in this podcast is taking that technology and bringing it into industry. So kind of understanding what's happening in the, call it the global crypto environment, but bring it into it, like understand what's happening, but dissect the pieces that are actually relevant to our listeners and really approach that and attack that. So really it's a convoluted way of saying, like, don't worry about all this like cryptocurrency. I was breaking securities laws. This is for the guys who are trading cryptocurrency. This isn't for people who are trying to use it.
Well, exactly. And on that note, like, let's move this on a little bit to another piece of news that's been happening lately. NVIDIA, I'm sure you guys have heard of NVIDIA, like the chip manufacturer, had their keynote speech a little while ago, and their stock shot up dramatically, and for really good reasons. Like, they are announcing some key new technologies. Everyone's talking about their new AI chips and how fast, and we'll dive into that a little bit. But the first takeaway that I want to touch on is some new technology that they're creating and some new hardware that they're creating to allow these supercomputers to actually exist, these AI supercomputers. So they've created, in partnership with TSMC, was it?
I believe it's TMC. Yeah.
TMC. Yeah. Partnership with them. They created a new version of Ethernet where it has 100 billion transistors in a 90 mil by 90 mil. So like something like this, 100 billion transistors that can actually transfer 51 terabytes a second of data, which is absolutely mind-blowing. Like, that's absolutely mind-blowing. And like, we think about how quick, like, and we always use ChatGPT as like the de facto, like that's the baseline of what we can see as generative AI right now. Think about the amount of generative AI and the capabilities of it if you can transfer the data at that rate.
Yeah.
It's absolutely, I can't fathom it. Like, and no one can right now. So that is something that is hugely exciting that came out of that keynote speech. It's been a little bit downplayed because of their chips.
Yeah. And don't forget too, with NVIDIA, like they, because they're big businesses, GPUs, like graphic processing is like gamers, and gamers, graphic designers. So anyone who's a heavy computer user knows NVIDIA well. They're the players, they're the big players. AMD is too, of course, but NVIDIA is important to highlight because they're particularly well known for their involvement in the crypto. Well, not involvement, but their how well suited their products are to the crypto space. We'll put it that way. Like all say your top, Litecoins and Bitcoins and all that, to actually process all those transactions. Basically, everyone's using GPUs because they can handle so much throughput, and they're most efficient to do it. So everyone's buying up NVIDIA GPUs, and it's not gamers. They're not playing, Fortnite or Grand Theft Auto on it. They're mining Bitcoin. They're mining like all the other tokens that are where the transactions are settled that way or recorded that way, I should say. So they know this space. They understand it. They engineer a lot of their new GPUs to suit this market. So no surprise that they're coming in and, they understand what's going on and what's needed. So think about it from, you're a CIO, you're a CTO. Think about if these guys are ramping up their business to accommodate blockchain and Web3. I guess the question is, what should you be doing? Like, what should you be thinking about in the back of your head if you're running more, we'll call it legacy. It's not legacy, but say it's more legacy technologies. What should you be doing to move yourself forward?
Well, I know if I was a CEO, CTO, I'd be throwing this on my roadmap immediately. Like the second piece of the hardware that NVIDIA was announcing is their new supercomputer chip. So it's essentially 256 chips working together as one to handle 500 times more memory than what they had in their previous version of that. And right now they're set to release. They said by the end of the year, but let's say it's a year from now, a year from today. So mid 2024, Q2 2024 is when they're going to release this product. Google, Microsoft, Meta has already signed up to be testers for this. And so if they're testing this right now and they're seeing that the capabilities of this hardware are there to remove roadblocks in data transmission, to streamline their cloud services. If I'm a CEO and CTO, I would be worried a little bit that the products that I'm using right now aren't going to be available because this new flashy new product is available. And if the new and shiny is there, they're going to start kicking off their old services. And well, how long does it take to migrate all of your data and all of your systems over to a cloud?
Like, yeah, especially like look at the complexity of like say you're in industrials, like manufacturing and heavy industry, anything within that space. Takes a long time, and it's because you have usually your ERP is humongous. You've got so many different pieces that are playing into that. Your operations layer, whether it's some kind of MES and all, PLM, all those related systems, and then you keep going down into like SCADA layers and things like that. There is so much that has to maybe not necessarily migrate over to something like a cloud service but everything has to play with it. That's what I'm kind of getting to is like, you may not be migrating it, but you have to make that talk to that, and A has to talk to B, and if B's going to the cloud, but A's staying on prem, it's a complex problem. Like you need it's not something that's easily done, and like in a lot of cases, it's not something that's done with a single vendor either. Like you're not going to have one, like an integrator come in and do that for you necessarily. You're going to have an integrator with a consultant, with a boots on the ground type guy, all these people trying to work together to do this for you. So it's not necessary. So if you can get ahead of this and start looking at, and you can see this in a lot of the technology platforms, like if you were to focus on like operational technology, just for the sake of the argument, you see a lot of the vendors starting to push all their on-prem stuff up the cloud, and it's very intentional, and for multiple reasons. Like for the billing side, which everybody loves, like the SaaS model. It's like, yeah, give me my money every month instead of it's the whole cash flow thing. So you have that piece of it, but then you also have the we control more of your stuff type situation, like bring it up to our cloud or bring it up to like an Amazon cloud that we're administering, stuff like that, where they're taking on more of it. And like Eric, like you obviously see plenty of this. Like, what's your take on it?
Well, exactly. Like you see that as well, and you have to make sure you're planning accordingly for this, because you're going to have to make the move eventually to one of these models. And all these models are SaaS based, and once you go SaaS, like they have you, and like you have to pay that or you lose the service. And so it's very important to make sure you're planning accordingly and that you don't have any other projects in the way of this implementation, because this is going to take all of your bandwidth for 18 months to get everything to talk to each other. And you have to make sure you're planning correctly, because if you are not planning for this, your competitors are. And once your competitors have that competitive edge, it's going to be very hard to catch up, because every month that you are spending of those 12 to 18 months trying to play that catch-up game, they're getting that much further ahead. And that's what I would be worried about at most.
And so, Eric, you've got quite a bit of experience in the CNC and the machining industry. So if you were to let's take an example, and if you're operating a mid-sized company, say it's 100 people, 150 people in that industry, and you see this coming down the road, what's something you could do, say today, that would help you at least have an idea of what's coming down the road, and kind of get an idea of what you got on your floor?
So first thing I'd be looking at is the type of machine monitoring that I have in place today. Like that is number one importance, to know what you actually have and you have available, and you actually have the hardware in place. Because I know a lot of the manufacturing processes, like we like to think that it's super high tech, it's TSMC, it's clean rooms and everything, but that's not the reality, and we all know that that's not the reality. So you have to make sure all your legacy equipment can talk to each other, and you have the systems in place that can talk to each other. So that's the first thing that you should be putting on your roadmap. The second thing, you have to make sure you have all the baseline software to actually measure everything. Then you have to make sure that you actually have people in place to train and to actually decode the data that's actually coming in, because there is unlimited amount of data that you can plug into your ERP system if you want to, or just monitor it. Because we all know, I'm generalizing a little bit here, but as someone in manufacturing, I know and I see that one of the biggest problems that I hear over and over again is human capital. Like operators, people running the machines, is one of the number one problems that you have. And so you have to make sure that your machines are running at peak capacity for what is actually capable with the bodies that you have on the floor. And know that down the road, as generative AI comes out more and more, that these softwares that are making your parts, that are deciding how you quote or anything like that, it's just going to get better and better and better. So if you can shave 15% off your cycle time on a part that you're producing, like that's huge. That's huge when you're doing giant runs. And something like that, I'm sure will be capable in like feature-based machining or with generative AI. Hopefully this actually comes out so they can come up with ways to actually make the parts for you more efficient. So I would be planning for that. I would make sure that your shop is actually ready to go for the technology and over ready to go for the technology. Like everything is there hardware-wise today, so you can actually bring it to the level once the technology is there.
Yeah, exactly right. It's like a readiness. It's like a readiness assessment, really. I mean, you come in like, what is your current state in terms of your hardware readiness, your software? How are the two playing together? Where's your data being generated from? What are you using it for? And just mapping that process out. Because once you have an understanding of that, especially the data piece, if you have an understanding of that, when you start to ask some of these questions around blockchain and like how to bring this stuff, I guess like really fundamentally when we're talking about Web3 and blockchain and all this stuff, it's data handling. It's the issue that's been around since computing started. It's like, how do I manage huge amounts of information? And back in the day, it was storing it on huge big cassettes and a room as big as this in a supercomputer. But now it's there's so much being generated. How do I actually process it? So really, that's I guess the highest level I can think of it based on what you're saying, and really what my experience is just understand where that's coming from. Put it in a form that's, how do we put it in a form that is easily adapted to this technology, and look for ways to actually to implement it from there.
Well, and in our piece as well, once you do start making these changes and everything, it's always good to share this with your clients. Like clients love to know that you are actually making these improvements. They love to know. And this is actually prepping them down the road. So when you do launch whatever Microsoft or Google's or whoever's service is going to be, once you do launch that and you need them to get on board to plug into their systems as well, they already know what you're working on. And they already know you're going down that route. So it's not a shock to them in a year and a half or 2 years when you ask them to make the investment too into that technology, so you can both benefit, that you're not going to lose that contract.
And this might be the point. This is where we do our pitch for Web3 innovations, perhaps, where this is the type of thing that we do, is we come in and we understand that process, and then not only can we help you in terms of actually bringing, if there is a use case that makes sense, we can bring in some technology that's Web3 enabled and develop to a point where you can use it in an industrial environment. But we can also help you rationalize your business around the technology that's coming down the road. So really all I mean by that is get you ready for it, and point out the areas specific to you that you need to either prepare for, or areas that you're particularly well suited for, and you should be watching out for opportunities, and we can kind of help you piece that together. So it's certainly early stage in terms of from a technology standpoint, in terms of what's available out there, but we're trying to help those companies that want to be on the cutting edge, or see this for the opportunity where I can go from, say a mid-tier operation to a top tier if I can leverage this as soon as it comes out. So that's really what we're trying to focus on, and obviously as a point of the podcast, and trying to share this information and get people engaged.
Well, exactly, yeah. Because if one person becomes more efficient, that means everyone becomes more efficient, and
yeah,
we want everyone to adopt this new technology, because once you there's only so many hours in a day and so many hours on a machine. And once you unlock that time in whatever your business is, you unlock potential to take on new work, which then means your customers unlock new potential to take on new work, new product lines, new items. And all we are doing in this society and in this business is trying to create and produce more things more efficiently.
Yeah.
And that's what we're really looking for. And it's really exciting for Aleck and I to be a part of this and to actually guide businesses and to help people with just the knowledge on this podcast to look at things a little bit differently, so you can actually implement this technology as it comes out.
Yeah, exactly right. Well, I think with that, I think we've hit all the key points. I don't know, Eric, is there anything else that you want to cover on this one?
No, I think we covered everything this week. So join us again every week where we discuss everything Web3 related. And most importantly, how you as a CEO, CTO, CIO, business owner, account manager, developer can implement this Web3 technology into your business today. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.